Welcome in to the Brian and Brenden talking about Beaver football podcast. We promise we'll come up with a little snappier name moving forward, but nevertheless, we'll move right into the first podcast of the year, Brenden. Glad to be here with you.
I am too. You know, it's been a long hiatus since our last podcast, Brian. It's going to be so much better this year.
Yeah, it was the last one we did in was it in Berkeley or did we do one after that?
Man, I want to say the last one we did was maybe Berkeley, because I think our schedules got way too whacked after that. I don't think we ended up doing anything after it.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. I think so. We're almost a year, and 8 months.
And it was getting a little tough talking about Oregon State football at that point.
Very true, very true. So we'll just move on. We'll move on to, it's a 2016 year. It's a whole new year of football. So first we should do some little introductions. I'm Brian Rathbone, work here at Orange Media Network, worked for the Barometer, do some TV stuff. Along me is Brenden Slaughter. You may recognize him from 1080 The Fan. If you heard those little news breaks, or even his Mike Riley take from a couple days ago. He humbled himself to come back down to the school and leave the bright lights of ESPN behind.
Yeah, it was a great experience. Things are run very, very, high level up there. You really see just how hard it is to crack into this business being up there. You also see how there's not a whole lot of room for anything but being, the best of the best in this business. And, no one really cares what you've done coming in. You're here, you're now, let's see what you got. So I'm glad to be back, doing our podcast, Brian. I'm excited to dive into some Oregon State football.
Yeah, so of course the topic of these podcasts will primarily be Oregon State football. We'll do some past football, we'll do some past, some present, and some future stuff, regarding the football team. We'll dive into some basketball once we get into that time of year, maybe even some baseball, or whatever we want to talk about. So on the docket we have today, we're going to go with 5 reasons why Oregon State will be better in 2016 than they were in 2015. Then we'll go, 3 reasons why they won't improve, why it'll just be a repeat of 2015. And then finally, we'll each give our hot take in a segment we're going to call Grade the Take. Where
I love that name.
Yeah, Grade the Take. So
I love that.
Brenden will say something. I'll obviously give him an F. I'll say something and he'll be like, "Oh, Brian, you're such a genius."
Wow. I remember we sat back in this prod room about this time a year ago, and you were telling me how great Nick Mitchell was, and and I was telling you how great Seth Collins were. So, I think we can both take Fs on that one, both at the quarterback position. So
yeah. Funny enough, I re-listened to some of those podcasts just because they were...
You were telling me they were a little raw.
Yeah, they were... we did not come off looking very smart, but hey, we tried to make the best with, a team that just... We tried to find the positives that, might not have been there.
Yep.
All right.
I remember when I said a bowl game.
Yeah. Yeah, you were actually really late into the bowl game thing. It was like, after the Colorado loss, you're like, they can still make a bowl. There's gonna be a couple 5 and 7 teams that'll make it.
Maybe some orange colored glasses there, Brian.
A little bit. So, coming off a 2-10 season is the Oregon State Beavers. Did not win a conference game last year. Ended on a 9-game losing streak. A little bit of a positive note in the Civil War. Came back from being down a lot to make it a really competitive game. You and I were both there. That was really fun to watch. It was probably the highlight of the season. But let's move ahead to 2016.
You mean San Jose State wasn't the highlight of the season?
Oh, gosh, not. Oh, it's all right. So, Brenden, we'll get into our first segment, which is, 5 reasons why Oregon State will be better than this year. What's your first reason?
Yeah, the big thing is, and this may seem simple, but it's true. The Beavers are a year older. They're a year older. They're a year more experienced. Last year, they had a situation where they were the only team, one of I think it was 4 or 5 teams in the country that did not have a starting quarterback experience. And now, oddly enough, I actually found out Arizona State is in that same category this year. And unless you have a Marcus Mariota, a quarterback that doesn't have starting experience usually has to go through some lumps, and that team usually goes through quite a few lumps. There are some situations, obviously Josh Rosen, so on and so forth, but to not have a single quarterback on your roster that had in-game experience, you knew that was going to burn last year. And it did. And, I think the Beavers being a year older in that regard, I think the defense being incredibly young, now being a year older is going to be big. I think not graduating a whole lot of guys, again, you lost some guys that walked away like Gabe Ovgard or Cyril Nolan Lewis, or you lost some medical retirements, Drew Clarkson, or even some guys that just aren't with the team anymore like Caleb Smith. You lost more guys than you think. I think they lost like 7 now.
Yeah, the roster took a big hit.
It did, and that concerns me a little bit, because that even as a sophomore, Ovgard was seen as a very big leader. So was Cyril Nolan Lewis. So was even Caleb Smith, kind of led by a senior example, and him and Noah Togiai were expected to lock it down. And even Clarkson played a little bit last year. I can't pronounce the name of that other offensive lineman that retired. Leo something. My apologies there.
We need Josh Warden here to break down the names.
But yes, and then I think it took a bit, and then even Damian Haskins and Chris Brown. Mm-hmm. That's a sizable amount of guys that aren't on the squad this year compared to last. A concern there, I might bring that up in the why they could be, not as good, but I think a year older is big for Oregon State. Moving on, I think Darryl Garrettson at quarterback is really a game changer for the Beavers. Oh, sorry. Yeah. We rotate back and forth.
Yeah, we'll go. So here's
my apologies. I thought we were.
Hey, it's the first podcast. We're just jumping right into this. All
right.
We'll get it going. So my first one, better quarterback play. That is the biggest reason why I think this team will improve. Last year's quarterback play was from Seth Collins to Nick Mitchell to Marcus McMaryion. It's not great.
Yeah, arguably, they played their best game of the season against the Ducks when McMaryion and Seth Collins kind of ran that two-headed monster.
Yeah,
that was that day, but still very, very inaccurate. Yes,
but yeah, just look at some of these numbers. So combined 46% completion percentage, did not throw for a combined 2,000 yards, and had 10 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. That's crazy. It seems like when Sean Mannion was here, that was like 4 weeks. After 5 games, he was over 2,000 yards and all that when he was, I think that junior year when he was just slinging it. Yeah, I just think with Darryl Garrettson is an obvious upgrade over those two, just in general. I mean, he's looked, pretty solid in camp. Hasn't maybe wowed as much as maybe hasn't looked as good as he did in the spring game, but I don't think I still think that he's going to be really good for the team. And I think there's people misjudge him because he's a game manager. He's, dink and dunk, just get it to the playmakers. The guy's got an arm and he has really nice touch on his deep ball. There's just so many times in practice these last, since they opened camp, just dropping bombs, just perfect stride. The receivers going run under him. He might not have the arm strength of Mannion to be able to just launch it 60 yards down the field the way Sean did, but I think he has better touch than
a comparison that I like to make, and it could be just a 2-year thing, and this leads to my second point that I said improve quarterback play as well, is he reminds me a lot of a guy like Matt Moore. Maybe a little smaller, not quite as built, but Matt Moore was a bigger recruit coming out, but also, Matt Moore was never just going to be able to launch it 60, 70 yards on the field. And everyone's like, well, this guy's coming in. Oregon State at the time was prepared for him or Ryan Gunderson, and Matt Moore beat him out, and Oregon State, went through some lumps his first year in 2005, went 5-7, then Matt Moore led Oregon State to a 10-4 record the next year in his senior year, and I really kind of see a lot of similarities. Matt Moore was probably the more mobile of the Sean Campfields, the Mannion. Garrettson is more mobile. And as I look at Darryl Garrettson's stats when he was at Utah State, in 2013 he goes 126 for 209. Again, not a ton of completion, but that's as a true freshman, and he completes 60% of his passes. Then you go to his sophomore season before he hurt his ankle, went 91 and 135 for 1,000 yards and a 67% completion rate with 8 touchdowns only against 3 picks.
Yeah, and
that's just a true sophomore.
True sophomore. And, a positive note, Kevin McGivern, the offense coordinator now, was the offense coordinator with him there. So there's that nice synergy. And I think we talked about this a little bit, but I think that's a big reason. And I think once Garrettson was going to separate himself, I think that played into Kevin McGivern being the co-offensive coordinator more than you could think. Yeah.
And that demotion of Dave Baldwin, I think that I'm not saying it's because, but I think it played a part in it.
I agree. And McGivern obviously has experience, running an offense. Last year's offense under Baldwin never really clicked. McGivern,
Well, I mean, think about it. Oregon State's offense clicked when McGivern called plays in the Civil War.
Yeah. And, better quarterback play just doesn't mean Daryl Garrison. I think Marcus Marion is so much more improved from last year.
I haven't got a chance to see him play really this year, so yes.
Yeah, no, man, the last week or two, he has just been, to me, he's outperformed Garrison just this last week, just, based on what we see. And of course, over this last week, they're giving, some of these younger guys an opportunity to, because they have their starters kind of set. Those are kind of already set in stone. And so they're trying to find out who's going to step up and be these, second and third stringers that can make an impact when called upon. And so when you have that with McMarion, once he started getting more reps, he was just slinging it. And, I think that there's also the perception if Garrison goes down, this team's done. I disagree with that statement because McMarion's going to improve as well. You see it with just about every quarterback, they get better the longer they play. McMarion could easily fall in that case because he played well enough in the Civil War.
Yeah, I mean, well enough because Oregon State's offense was so anemic as it was. I mean, I'm going to say I will sit right here and say Garrison is the better quarterback.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But it's kind of like a situation, almost different styles, but you know what I mean when Oregon State had Sean Canfield and Loyal Moyval. They both complemented each other. I don't think it's a little different now because
I think they're very similar.
And my point is they couldn't go with a bad option between Canfield and Moyval. They were both okay, if one guy went down, Canfield went down and Moyval led the team to almost a Rose Bowl berth the next year. So I think
then the next year Moyval went down, Canfield almost took him to.
Yeah, so I mean I think if it's not a bad thing to have two really good quarterbacks.
Oh no, you want a starter. And then you want someone that if he goes down, that can step in and run the show.
And there's a lot of teams that don't. Look at Oregon last year. Look at Washington State when Luke Falk went out and Peyton Bender came in. Look at even, I'm trying to think, when New Solomon went out for Arizona, they went down. Quarterbacks in the Pac-12, if your quarterback makes it through all 12 games, you're singing hallelujahs.
Yeah.
It's the Pac-12. Your quarterback, unless you have a great offensive line, is not going to, he's going to get banged up. That's just, and especially if you have a mobile quarterback in today's offense, he's gonna get banged up, and that leads me to, your next point before we go to my next point.
Oh no, you can go to your second point. Well, because
my second point I said was just Garrison at quarterback.
Oh, Garrison at quarterback.
Yes, so back to your next point.
Okay, commitment to the run game. This team wants to run the ball.
Wrecking Null.
They got Ryan Null, the wrecking ball. They got Tim Cook, who's built just like Null, maybe even be a little bit faster, who's had a really good fall camp, who's really kind of improved. He's no longer rehabbing from his injury last year and is able to focus on the playbook and his assignments and not having to worry about the injury. And then Artavis Pierce, AP, who was one of my favorite.
I remember when you and I talked on the phone last week, you said you thought he was arguably one of the top 2 or 3 players in this class.
Yeah, no, he
maybe
was
even the best.
Yeah, and I wrote that in my column, way back in February signing day. Is I think they got an absolute steal, and he's lived up to the hype. He was one of the first freshmen to get his stripe removed. He's getting a ton of reps.
So you think it didn't really matter that he was a 3-star rather than a 4? You think stars really don't matter in this situation?
No.
I mean, even Gary Anderson said it's not what star you come in with, it's what star you leave with.
Exactly. And I think they got a really good one. I think he's not further along in his football arc as Null and Cook, who've played a lot more football than he has. I think he has the higher ceiling of those two.
So, but he's more of a scat back though. He's not.
He's pretty well
you think
built.
Is he going to be able to? I don't think. But there's only one Ryan Null, and really the guys that can just wreck people. You really think?
I don't think he can do that, but he has a little more wiggle than him. I think he has a little more breakaway.
Does he have more speed?
Yeah, a little more speed.
Because Gary Anderson said he wanted that 1-2 punch. You think you expect Paul Lucas in the backfield a little bit as well, or do you think he's going to stick exclusive, or even Seth Collins in the backfield? You think that's possible or no?
Get ready to see a lot of people in the backfield. In camp, we've seen Victor Bolden, we've seen Xavier Hawkins, we've seen Seth Collins, we've seen Paul Lucas.
Do you think Xavier Hawkins will finally live up to the hype he had when he came in? when Mike Riley was like, oh man, this kid could run fly sweeps for us his freshman year. They burn his red shirt, never plays. I read a couple, practice reports ago that, he was showing something. It'd be nice to finally see that kid get an opportunity.
Yeah, and that's kind of been the biggest thing is that he's been kind of buried in the depth chart. But yeah, expect to see a lot of different combinations in the backfield. They're gonna run the ball. They're gonna give you different looks, and that's one of the reasons why I think, because they can bring in some heavy hitters with Nall, with Cook, with Pierce, and then they can bring in some speed with Lucas, Bolden, Seth, and Xavier Hawkins. So that's another reason why I think they'll be better.
And that leads right into my next point why I think they're being better. Too many offensive weapons. Okay. You name them a lot. Hawkins, Bolden, Villeman, Jarman, Collins, AP, Cook, Nall, and Garrettson. My question mark again is the offensive line and whether or not, I don't know, has there been any developing news that I haven't seen much on, is it still 50-50 that Sean Harlow plays this season, or do you think he's gone?
Well, interesting enough, Kerry Eggers, he reported that Sean Harlow, might be redshirting. It wasn't a definite or anything. It was just, it could happen. He's practicing. He's not doing any of the live stuff quite yet.
He did have that injury very late in the year.
Yeah, late in the year, and I mean he's doing a lot of work. He's doing some work with Brett Agwebu, following the game.
But obviously Harlow makes a massive difference on that O-line. Mm-hmm. Whether or not he plays or not. But regardless, going back to that point, I just think now that you have a quarterback that can really sling it, and you have a guy like Seth Collins had 3 touchdowns in Civil War. You have a guy like Victor Bolden who can go off anytime. You have Ryan Nall who showed what he can do. I'm really excited to see what Tim Cook can do. I'm also really hoping that Tim Cook gets that extra year. I read something that said he won't be able to know if he can get that extra year till the end of the season. Mm-hmm. But I mean, man, if you could keep Tim Cook for a couple years, we've been hearing about how good he was. And, may have played last year, but I heard he's gotten better with his hands at practice. I think Oregon State, if they can keep Cook and Pierce and Nall healthy, they could be good, and then be able to run a lot of bubble screens and double passes, throw it to Collins and Collins throw it, or there's going to be too many offensive weapons, so I think their offense is going to do better than their, 18 points a game or something like that?
Yeah, last year's offense was not very good.
So that's why I think they'll be better there.
All right. I'm going to go very similar to yours, but on the opposite side of the ball. They have depth on defense now that they didn't have the last half of the year last year. I believe it was the Cal game where they rolled out the secondary with Gabe Ofgard, Malik Gilmore, and Kendall Hill.
Yep.
I mean, of course, Ofgard had that interception against
the number 1 pick.
Against
Yeah,
that was awesome. But those are 3 players who were converted wide receivers.
Is this interestingly enough, that I remember that, and I remember it was just a thrill show for Jared Goff because they just could. I mean, Malik Gilmore's not with the team anymore, obviously, and then Kendall Hill. I think I think he's I really like Kendall Hill's physicality, and I think he'll play a role this year. And then Ofgard, obviously, a true freshman or redshirt freshman? I can't remember.
He was actually a sophomore last year.
Was he a sophomore?
Yeah.
Okay, but never played.
Yeah.
So and Goff went for 400 or more.
Oh yeah, gosh! Cal racked up 700 yards of offense.
Their school record.
Yeah, and I really like what they have going on the defensive line. They got some real playmakers there. Sumner
Houston, Bakamelalo, and
Elu. He's been playing really well. He could be a real difference maker.
I think his hair is a game changer.
Yeah. But yeah, Sumner's been doing really good. He looks a little more built now. I always thought he just physically looked a little off.
Yeah, I thought that too. That's why when I kept seeing him rise on the depth chart, I was like, what is this?
Yeah, I was like, that's a Division I defensive tackle. And I mean, he has really good pedigree, came from, one of the best, arguably the best high school programs in the country, but now he looks like he's put together.
Good.
And I mean, a lot of work in the weight room, but yeah, they got some depth on the defensive line. I like moving Titus to the
I think he could have a big year.
Yeah. No.
I like Titus in the outside linebacker. I mean, Brian, you and I have had Titus in the set many times, And if that dude was coming at me, if I was quarterback, I'd probably be scared.
Yeah.
He's got some size and some strength. And then now you put him in a linebacker where he gets to just jump off the ball or go into coverage, and he's quick too and slim down. That's kind of could be him and Ugwebu and Willis. I mean, or even
and we also don't have like Ricky Ortiz was starting at linebacker in the Civil War. I mean, I love Ricky Ortiz. I just love him as a football player.
Yep.
But you can't just like midway through the season, we're not going to play fullback. Go play linebacker.
Yep.
That's just
not just that easy.
It's a tough move for anyone, and I really admire the people like Off Guard and the people like Ortiz, willing to make those moves and be like, all right, we're gonna, and the effort that they gave, and so like I just think that the defense is a little more depth, has a little more depth. I like the redshirt freshmen that are coming in that, redshirted a year ago. I think that they'll come in and do well. I think that this team is a lot more suited to play a 12-game schedule. Yeah, like a 12-game schedule.
Yeah, for sure.
Than opposed to last year.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you said depth, and Oregon State didn't even take a full team to Oregon. Mm-hmm. They took 15 players less than even like the NCAA allowable number.
I think it was like 57, and they can
dress 70.
No, well, for rivalry games you can dress everyone.
Well, that's right, but usually it's 70, I think.
Yeah,
or somewhere like that. So,
but for rivalry games, you can bring the whole squad.
And there were a lot of guys that Gary Anderson said didn't deserve to go too.
Yeah,
which is an interesting take.
Okay, so what's your third point, Brenden?
Yeah, my third point or my fourth point, you mean?
Fourth point.
Fourth point is honestly Oregon State preaching physicality.
Okay.
Last year, I remember reading all the practice reports, and it was just new players are struggling. It was like right now when wide receivers couldn't even run routes. I remember that last year when they're like wide receivers couldn't even like get routes right, or couldn't even huff and puff, and run through a full spread practice. I think now that you have a little bit more physicality, I'm seeing all these things from Gary Anderson and Kevin. And actually, the one thing I did like, Kevin Clune, I think, is a little bit more outspoken than Kalani Sitake was. And I like how Kevin Clune's like, we're going to be the most physical team in the Pac-12. We may not win games, but we're going to hit you harder than anybody else in the Pac-12. I don't remember hearing that last year. And maybe if I did, it got brushed aside. Oregon State got shoved around in every game.
Yeah.
Even in the games they lost or won. I'm sorry, Weber State shoved them around. Mm-hmm. Weber State's defensive line shoved Oregon State around. San Jose State shoved Oregon State around. Every team shoved Oregon State around. They weren't physical. They didn't scare you. Mm-hmm. It's no different than when you and I were talking about baseball, and you were talking about Andrew Moore, how you had a number one pitcher that frightened opponents. Oregon State didn't frighten an opponent at all. When Oregon State opponents just saw them as an easy W because they didn't put up a fight. Yeah, there wasn't just beat them off the line. Even if you're gonna lose, and I compare this to, like I guess the best way of saying is maybe like Stanford, even when they weren't super great in Harbaugh's first couple years, when they went like 5-7 or 6-6, or even his first year, I think they went like 4-8 or 3-9. Mm-hmm. They weren't great, but you felt them. Yeah, you felt them the next day. You knew they were there. When Oregon State lost to them in 08 or 09, or even when they had Toby Gerhardt or whatever, they weren't like a Rose Bowl team yet, but you felt Stanford. And now you look at where they're at. Oregon State needs to be more physical, and everything I've read and seen from practice reports that I've seen from either Beaver Blitz or Oregon Live is that they have been more physical in practice, and guys can handle more physicality. I think that's a game changer for them.
No, I agree. That kind of ties into the the running game, that they're gonna want to bully you a little bit. They're gonna try to do that.
And it goes with Gary Anderson's mindset. At Wisconsin, he ran the ball 60% of the time or more, and threw the ball 40% of the time. And at Utah State, those numbers were even higher. Oregon State last year, they didn't have really, Storm Woods was hurt. They didn't really find about Ryan Nall for a while until
he was dealing with some injuries too. Yep. Chris Brown was dealing with injuries.
Haskins wasn't.
Yeah, it was hard. Yeah, they couldn't establish like any consistent running game.
Storm was hurt all season really with that lingering knee injury.
Yeah, and so that's an excellent point. So my fourth reason right here is the last three coaches at Oregon State have shown improvement in their second year. So I'm kind of going off your very first point. So Riley's second year, he jumped from, I believe it was 2 wins to 5 wins, which was a big jump back in, 96, 97. Erickson, had the 6-6 year, Fiesta Bowl the next year.
Right.
And then Riley again.
It'd be his 04 season.
Yeah, his 04 season won 5 conference games, which was an improvement from his first year back.
Yep.
So there's just, you get a little more comfortable within a system, and I think that's what will happen again. But we touched on base on that, earlier in the pod. Yep. So we can go straight to your next segment. What's your fifth and final reason?
Fifth and final reason is continuity on the staff all the way across. I know Kalani Sitake lost. We lost Kalani Sitake for defense. But when I look back at it, did we really think we were going to keep Kalani Sitake for very long anyway? When Gary Anderson hired him, everyone knew he was one good head coaching job away. And for Kalani Sitake, who is of the LDS faith religion, getting to go coach at the LDS, I mean, that's like
that's BYU, a dream. And he played there. So.
And that's a dream come true job. Yeah. I can't even blame the guy. I mean, if that was you and it was your school and your home and they wanted you so badly, granted, I would have never thought Bronco Mendenhall would have ever left BYU.
Yeah, I mean,
he was like a Mike Riley, Oregon State kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I have friends that go to BYU and they were shocked.
Crazy. And then they go to Virginia of all places.
Yeah.
Crazy. Right? So
and on the same point, Kalani Sitake, based off last year, should not have been considered for a head coaching job. Just going off 2-10, where your defense was never really good.
Defense was the funny thing was it wasn't even the worst in the Pac-12, which is kind of I don't get how that quite happens, but I guess anyway. But I really think the moves to put McGivern at offensive coordinator along with TJ Woods is going to be a game changer for Oregon State, because little did we know, we found out that McGivern called plays in the Civil War afterwards.
Yeah. And
that just happened to be the time Oregon State put up what was it, 42 points?
Yeah, it was
52-42, right?
Yeah.
And
something like that.
That's not I don't think that's coincidental. I don't think everything finally just clicked in one game when we didn't even have depth. I think it was that plays were called in a better way. Ryan Nall obviously had a big thing. Victor Bolden, there were some special teams and stuff. But I think McGivern at the offensive coordinator position provides that security blanket for Darryl Garrison to know that his coach that he's worked with well is going to call good plays. McGivern knows how to get playmakers in space, and I think that's going to be the last thing that's going to make Oregon State better.
Yep, I agree that. I think that's a very good thing. I'll touch on a little bit on that later. So my fifth and final reason is Pac-12 lost some players. There's some teams that are going through some transition. Cal's going to have to go. Cal, Stanford, Oregon.
Cal might not even miss a beat with Davis Webb at quarterback.
I'm saying they all have to replace quarterbacks, good quarterbacks.
So
Utah has to replace quarterback. USC, I mean, I don't think USC isn't on the schedule, but there's teams that could be down. Utah lost Devontae Booker.
Arizona State doesn't have a quarterback with college experience.
Yeah, there's a ton of question marks.
Granted, we don't play USC or Arizona State.
Arizona. Are they good or are they not? They
lose. Solomon is still like, what?
They lose Scooby Wright. And so I think...
It's funny. Anu Solomon goes from next Mariota his freshman year when they go to the Fiesta Bowl to now, is he even going to get the starting job this year?
Yeah.
Crazy, right?
Yeah. So those are 5...
Oregon's
replacing...
Quarterbacks, we don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sold on Dakota Prukop.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of Oregon fans that want to start Travis Johnson. That was a big thing that, there's not a whole lot of people that are sold on, because a lot of people, one thing I know for sure, Dakota Prukop or Travis Johnson is nowhere near the level that Vernon Adams was.
That's
Vernon
true.
Adams was a game-changing Division II quarterback that should have never went to Division II. That was just the situation that he was in. Mm-hmm. And he had the track record. He tore up Division I opponents when they played him. Dakota Prukop's only time he played a Division I opponent, he went like 6-20 for 3 picks.
Yeah.
So, it's not quite, you can't keep going the FCS route forever. I know we're getting off topic, but replacing a quarterback's not easy.
Yeah. A lot of quarterback changeover. Even Oregon State's going through one.
Look at Jared Goff's first year.
Yeah.
Cal went 1-11, so it's tough.
All right. So we went through our 5 reasons. We'll take a quick break right now. All right, and we are back for the second part of our 3-part podcast. So we just talked about the 5 things why Oregon State will be better in 2016 as opposed to 2015. But let's be a little more objective. Why are things going to remain the same, Brenden?
Yeah,
we'll start off with you. What's your first reason? We'll only keep it 3. We'll keep these nice and short.
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely try to get through these a little quicker because I think because I do honestly, if I had to guess and put my finger on it, Brian, I do think they are going to be better. So, but reasons for or skepticism. Maybe here's and it's kind of a 2-parted monster. Maybe Darryl Garrison is as good as we think he is.
Yeah, that's a fair point. We have a small sample size with him. He's
very small sample size. We haven't really seen. He's never played a full season. Injuries twice. Just a thought there. That's my first. And then, do you want to go back and forth on this one?
Oh yeah, of course. But
that's my big thing. Is Darryl Garrison? We don't have a large enough sample size to see on him yet.
I mean, he had a really good game against BYU that one time, but other than that, he's played the Air Forces, the Colorado States, the
Utah. He played Utah. I mean,
not.
Pretty sure they played Utah, yeah. Because Utah State plays they play each other, yeah.
But I wasn't sure if he played that game.
I thought he played his freshman, but I could be wrong. I haven't seen all his highlights.
But regardless, small sample size. Is he the real deal? Can he withstand a full 12-game season? That I think that's a very, very fair point. The first reason I have, tougher non-conference schedule.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Last year there was 2
very winnable games.
This year there's only 1. Idaho State. Boise State's always tough.
Let's put it
Minnesota is tough too.
Here's my thought though. Last year was 2 winnable games and 1 game you knew you weren't going to win.
Yeah.
This year, there isn't a game you know for sure you're not going to win. You're not playing in Michigan. I'll give you that. They're all 3 more. Idaho State, if Oregon State loses to Idaho State, they're not going to lose to Idaho State. They're going to win that game. Now, Boise State and Minnesota, if Oregon State's improved, those games aren't impossible. It's tougher on paper, but not impossible. Boise State and Minnesota aren't Michigan.
Yeah, no, that is true. It's not as top heavy. It's deeper though.
Yes, absolutely.
Last year, they went 2-1. That was kind of expected that they would go that way. This year they could easily go 1-2.
Yep.
I there's less winnable games, but there's more losable games this year.
Yes,
as opposed to the year before. All right, second point.
Oh, for me, got it. Second point for me is, let me pull it up here. My second point is, I think maybe the offseason losses are more than we think. I think that ties into, I think the offensive line depth has gotten hurt drastically. I know that the last couple practices I saw that there was a walk-on that had to be at right tackle because Dustin Stanton's been out with some illness. I don't know if that's meaning to be more, but usually you don't see guys out for weeks with illness in summer unless it's...
He hasn't been out for weeks, though.
That was a solid week now.
No, I only think it's been a couple days.
Okay. So, offensive line, and then losing Clarkson and Leo, and then losing Brown and Haskins, who were both, led by example guys, losing Caleb Smith, who was with the team for 5 years now. He was, considered for the leadership committee by Gary Anderson for a while and was really close with Darryl Garrison and Jordan Villeman. Then losing guys like Cyril Nolan Lewis and a real war daddy like Gabe Ovgard was. I think that could play a part too. You lost what was it? I think it was 7 or 8 scholarship guys.
Yeah, that was a big blow, and yeah, we talked about that a lot at the top.
So I think that could affect them more than they think. That's another reason.
Oh yeah, that's a good reason. I'm going to go with the offensive line. They're basically right now without their 3 best offensive line from last year. They, lost Isaac to the draft.
Yep.
Josh Mitchell
right.
Graduated. Sean Harlow's still
in limbo.
Still in limbo. And right now they're throwing in some people that, they still have Fred Lauina coming back. He's hasn't shown much. Yeah, and then they have a new center, and Yanni Demogerantis.
I still understand how Braden Kersley is buried on the depth chart.
He's injured. He hasn't even practiced. He hasn't even been
practicing. So is that a serious thing, or?
Well, it kept him out of all of spring, and
because that guy was a 5-star recruit.
4-star.
You sure?
100%.
Okay, but I know he was one of the best offensive linemen in the entire country that year. and he hasn't even got a chance to show his stuff.
Yeah.
So is he out for the season then? Or
there hasn't been anything official, but he's been out with an injury.
really? Okay, I did not know that.
Yeah, I talked to TJ Wood media day and asked him about it, and he's like, we can't really talk about it.
Oh.
So it sounds like it's kind of serious.
So yeah, offensive line, I think that's a very solid point, Brian.
Yeah. And the biggest question marks has been center, because they're replacing. They've had really good center play the last.
Oh gosh.
Going back to Isaac's freshman year, they've had really good center
Even
play.
longer
Even before
than that. I mean, when they had guys, I mean, shoot.
It's Alex, and his last name's like
Linenthal.
Well,
Alex Linenthal was good. I mean, we could really go back, but Oregon State's always had great center play.
Yeah.
Maybe not the greatest tackle play, maybe not even the greatest guard play, but they've always had very, very good centers.
And TJ Wood said that, this is the most important position on the line, because I mean they're running the show. They're the quarterback of the offensive line. And right now, one of the things they're really struggling with, snapping the ball.
Yep.
And that's kind of continued. We're seeing they're trying out different people. Cammy Delp the other day was giving it a go. Botched multiple snaps. They're throwing Gavin Andrews in there. It'll be interesting. So offensive line play. When you're running the spread, the offensive line play doesn't have to be stellar. It doesn't have to be as. It's different than a pro style. So you can get away with average, even like offensive line play. Like last year, like offensive line, I thought did a fine job, given the circumstances. So you lose some talent and all that. So it's just kind of a wait and see if with them. Final point.
Final point is, believe it or not, oddball, fan support and attendance.
Oh, putting them on blast.
I am. I think, honestly, Brian, how many people were there for the Washington Husky game after halftime?
Oh no!
In a stadium that holds 47,000 people, how many people were there?
2,000,
maybe.
I mean, there's probably over 10.
So, I'm gonna say I think that Oregon State is gonna have to prove something against that game against Minnesota, show something to get some butts and seats, as they say. Mm-hmm. And you know as well as I, when Reeser is full, it's rocking. It's one of the better home field advantages in the pack. It's just the way it's built. But when it's empty, it's like a library out there.
Yeah.
And I think if Oregon State can get some, you saw last year, early in the year, guys were cranking up the crowd. You didn't see that in the end of the year. Guys weren't trying to jump up because there was no crowd to crank up.
Yeah, there's...
You need to get more fans there, get the student section going. That can lead into... You need to get more fans there so you can get the support and get that home field advantage. Otherwise, it's like you're playing another road game.
Yeah, it was bad. The attendance across the board was worse than even Riley's 3-11, 3-10 year, or 3-9 year.
And it's not just Oregon State, because Oregon State filled out men's basketball games, filled out women's basketball games, still filled out. It's not Oregon State fans not wanting to go to games. They don't want to go see an inferior product on the field with how high ticket prices are, which I understand because that's just the way it is now. But you gotta put a good product on the field. So fan support and putting a great product on the field. Without fan support, it could be another rough year.
Yeah. So my final point: OSU is still rebuilding. The other schools are reloading. We're Oregon State. They're still trying to get to a point where they can compete at the Pac-12 level. Where some of these teams have been competing at a Pac-12 level. There's not many new coaches. Like Gary Anderson's still the newest coach, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. He's still building his program. So a lot of those people that came in 2012 have their programs established.
Leach, Jim Mora, Todd Graham,
McIntyre. Yep. There's I think 4, Rich Rodriguez. I think there was 4 new coaches that one year.
Yeah, that's right.
And so they're established. Gary Anderson's still getting his footing, in the Pac-12, and so we're still a little bit behind.
I agree.
Or Oregon State's still a little bit behind.
I agree. So we're up to our predictions, right, Brian?
Ooh, yeah. Good take, bad take. Or grade the take is what we're going to call it.
Grade the take. I like it.
Grade the take. Brenden, without going into detail, what's your take? I'll give you a grade. Then you defend your take, and I'll give you another grade.
Oregon State at least doubles its win total.
Ooh, at least doubles its win total.
I said between 4 and 5 wins.
Between 4 and 5 wins.
Yep, that's my take.
Okay. I'm going to give you a C. Because I think that's a very, very safe take. And I think that's just kind of the general consensus. You're not wowing me with anything. But why do you think they're going to win 4 to 5 games?
Well, I know for a fact that the team is too good to go 2-10 again. I think they're going to get a few teams that overlook them and possibly get a couple sneaker wins. They're not going to get blown out in games. They may get a blowout. Every team gets blown out once, but they're not going to get blown out in every game because of the defensive depth you talked about, because of the offensive depth. And I think they're going to improve. And if they went 2-10 again, I mean, granted, Gary Anderson's first years at Utah State, he went 4-8 and 4-8. So maybe not, but I think Oregon State has done the right things, and they have enough good bodies in to go, probably that 4-8 mark. And you never know. Maybe the ball bounces crazy. Maybe you go 2-10 again. Maybe you get closer to 5 or closer to even that 6-win plateau. That's obviously speculatory, but the ball bounces funny ways sometimes. Obviously no one expected the Cougars to go to a bowl game after they lost to Portland State last year.
Yeah, not just bowl game, man. They were
good
in the race for the Pac-12 title,
and lost to Portland State.
Yeah.
Granted, not to discount what Bruce Barnum's doing at Portland State, but you shouldn't lose to Portland State and then be in contention for Pac-12 title.
Yeah.
And should have beat Stanford if you don't miss a field goal.
Yeah, I agree.
So, you never know how the ball can bounce funny ways, and your team can improve a lot of different ways.
Okay, that's very good points. I'll bump you up to a C+.
All right, I'll take that C+.
Yeah, just I was looking for a little more pizzazz.
Next week.
Yeah, maybe next week.
Next week, I need to get to practice. I need to see some things.
Yeah,
I've been a little out of the loop, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna go. This is gonna be way out of left field. That it's still Oregon State related. Sean Mannion, the next Tom Brady.
F. No way. You are soaring like a kite.
Okay. Well,
how?
We'll get into the how. Let's just say their career arcs are so similar. It's staggering. Just staggering. All right, so let's start with this. Both come from the Bay Area. Tom Brady's from the west side of the Bay. He's more, I think, San Mateo's where he's from. Just Mannion, just a 45-minute drive away from Pleasanton. Both from the Bay Area. I like the quarterbacks that come out of the Bay Area. I think that they just throw the ball well, and they've had a lot of good Hall of Fame players.
Personally, I like the Bay. I like the point guards coming out of the Bay too, like the Gary Paytons of the world and the Damian Lillards.
Yeah, like you got Aaron Rodgers, John Elway, Jim Plunkett.
The Bay, man, it's good.
Like Dan Fouts.
The Bay.
I'll even throw in Jared Goff in there because he's got some arm talent, and I like that.
But Jared Goff, I thought he was from L.A.
No, he's from the Bay Area.
Is he?
Yeah.
Okay, so the Bay, man.
Guess who else? Julian Edelman, my man.
The Bay. Okay, all right. I'm gonna give the Bay some credit.
Okay. Both similar builds, both tall.
Mannion's taller than Brady, isn't he?
Yeah, but they're both above 6'4". They're both tall.
And neither one of them are super fast.
Neither one of them are super fast. And you'd even say they're poor athletes for an NFL. You look at them and be like, oh, he's definitely a football player. They don't have that build.
Right.
Neither were blue chip prospects. Brady ended up going to Michigan, a big school, but there was 6 other quarterbacks on the roster. Not many blue chip quarterbacks can go where they have to go.
But Mannion was a 4-star prospect.
4-star prospect, but Oregon State was the only D1 offer.
Why do you think that is?
Part of it, he was a pro-style quarterback. He committed to Oregon State really early, and sometimes when some recruits commit really early, other schools will fend off. He could have just been like, nope, I'm 100% sold here.
Right.
But still, only one offer.
Okay.
Both faced adversity in college. Tom obviously had to work his way up from 7th on the depth chart.
Chad Pennington fighting with him too.
Not Chad Pennington.
Or was it?
It was Drew Henson, who was a.
That's right. I thought it was Chad Pennington.
Who was a blue chip recruit of blue chip recruits. Brady's senior year, those two were splitting splitting like reps the first part of the year. Brady eventually overtook him. Even Mannion, I felt like Mannion faced the most controversy for the least controversial player. Just think about it. He came in and replaced Ryan Katz.
Yep.
And that whole year was just kind of like, why aren't they playing Cats? Why aren't they playing Cats? Why aren't they playing Cats?
Yep.
why are they playing this Mannion guy? There's a little bit of controversy to that. And I think that, and then the next year, he starts off really well. And I mean, Oregon State jumps off to a really
highest
good,
number 7 in the country.
Yeah, highest number 7 in the country. Then he gets injured. Vaz takes over and plays really well, and Mannion once again kind of has to prove himself, and he doesn't get it.
He didn't get it back because Vaz started
Vaz played well. Vaz played well.
Bowl too.
Yeah, and Vaz got the start in the Alamo Bowl.
Funny story about Cody Vaz, real quick.
Go for it.
I said I'm not sure if I told you this or not, but you know how I worked at Five Guys Burgers and Fries this summer?
Oh, another plug. Let's go.
Saw Cody Vaz.
Oh, nice.
Came in, got a double cheeseburger. Came in, I recognized him. It just didn't look a thing different. Works insurance in Tualatin now.
Yeah, no, I think he's
crazy, right?
Yeah.
That just kind of popped. I'm like, dude, that's Cody Vaz.
Yeah.
Still looks super built though. But he's definitely not very. I mean, he's not super tall.
Yeah, he's
kind of reminds me of Daryl Garrettson's build a little bit.
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry.
But
continue.
anyway, so in college, Brady, in the documentary that they did on him.
Was that the one where he cried?
Yeah, where he said if he didn't perform well Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in practice, he wasn't going to get to start. I think Mannion had that similar thing going into his junior year and Vaz's senior year. I thought that he had to perform every week, and that was when practices were still open. I went to nearly every single one of those, the entirety, and tracked how everyone was doing. And Mannion was so good.
Vaz was it?
Vaz was because they would switch, days. Oh, you're gonna work with the ones one day. You're gonna work with the ones the other day.
So you're saying Vaz wasn't quite as
both looked really good when they were with the first team. When you have Brenden Cooks, on the outside. But when Vaz was with the twos, but when we each were with the twos, Mannion performed as well as Vaz did with the ones.
Right.
But it was a noticeable difference when Vaz was working with the twos. And then you saw the start that Sean had to that 2013 year.
Heisman numbers.
He was off the charts.
Heisman numbers, yep.
Yeah, so
him and Cooks, I mean, single-handedly, Cooks won the Blitnikoff because of how well Mannion played that year.
Yeah, so and then they both that was just really impressive, and I was just kind of I was like, man, he's had to endure every single day and just perform every single day. He couldn't take a day off and whatnot. I don't think he was solidified as a starter until after the Utah game when he just led that epic comeback.
Right.
Which brings me to my next point. Both had. I mean, Brady didn't have a stellar collegiate career. Mannion, I mean, he had all these passing numbers.
Yep.
Didn't
Number
have
one
the wins.
Pac-12 list.
Yeah. Brady had the wins, not the stats, but Michigan at that time was in its heyday, just one of the top teams in the nation, even before Brady was playing and even after he left.
Right. My only other thing to that is Brady only got his opportunity because.
Oh, let me continue. I'm building up to this. All right. Both were behind a franchise quarterback. Brady was not drafted he was drafted in the 6th round. He wasn't drafted to come in and be the starter. And I don't think Mannion was either right away.
Drew Bledsoe, yeah.
Yeah. And they're behind franchise quarterback. Drew Bledsoe signed the richest contract in NFL history at the time before that year, before the year they drafted Brady. They were committed to him fully.
And he was solid.
Yeah, he was a good quarterback. He led them to the Super Bowl and all that. And then, of course, Mannion, they draft Jared Goff with the number 1 pick. I mean, they obviously are very invested in him. Both took advantage of preseason games, of the small opportunities that they got. Brady, grew up in the Bay Area, huge 49ers fan, wanted to play for the 49ers. The 49ers drafted a quarterback that year, and they went with Giovanni Carmazzi, who had all the physical tools to be a good quarterback. He had a huge arm, could run, all this stuff. And he was expected to be the next Steve Young, Joe Montana. But the next Joe Montana was drafted by the Patriots. In one of the games the 49ers and Patriots played against each other, Carmazzi came in and just looked awful. Looked like he didn't belong in the NFL. while Tom Brady came in and looked like he could at least move the game. And with Brady, these are against scout team players, people trying to make the team, not against the starters. Similar to what Mannion did 2 weeks ago against the Cowboys. That was a big game. That was a bigger regular preseason game than most.
Yep.
Because it was the first game back in LA, and LA's first glimpse at Jared Goff was very underwhelming.
Well, Colin Cowherd calls him a bust.
Yeah, no, you could see the stage looked too big. He didn't look like he was quite ready for the NFL game. Sean Mannion comes in and leads a comeback, throws 3 touchdowns. He threw a pick and whatnot, but
that pick was an awful pick, though.
Yeah.
Like, it was a batted up ball that just had, like, a guy dove down and barely. I mean, I'm not gonna blame him on that one.
And 3-to-1 interception ratio, that's usually pretty good.
Yeah, and but the problem I have is Mannion might not even be the backup. They might give it to Case Keenum.
Yeah, and well, I think Keenum's like penciled in as the starter right now. But here's the thing. Tom Brady was kept on as the 4th quarterback, which is like unheard of to keep 4 quarterbacks on a roster. The Patriots wasted a roster spot. So even if he's the 3rd string, he can still, if he does enough and continues to play and, takes like that seriousness level that he's always shown. He's always been super serious about this. He's always been a film nut. He's a film junkie. He's always been a great student of the game. And I think when you're a great student of the game, it pays off in the long run. If you put in the hours, I just think that eventually you'll get your opportunity.
Right.
I think that Mannion has very similar intangibles to Brady.
Okay, now after hearing what you had to say, is that not quite?
We're not done yet.
Oh, wow.
Told you, dude. I was bringing it.
Oof.
So a couple weeks ago, Bill Simmons on a show, Any Given Wednesday, had Aaron Rodgers as one of his guests, and one of the questions that Simmons asked Rodgers was like, what makes a good quarterback? Like, what's the ratio of like physical tools to intangibles? And it was 20% physical tools and 80% intangibles. The things you can't grade like intangibles. And so I think that Mannion has unique leadership abilities. So let's start with, at Oregon State, he was the first ever 3-time captain. And think about when he was named captain. Following a 3-9 year when he overtook a starting quarterback 2 games into the year, like there had to be some people pissed off because he threw for like 18 interceptions. He threw more interceptions than touchdowns. But yet he got them to believe in him. Like, hey, I'm the leader of this team. I'm the guy. And that's going into the year with Marcus Wheaton, Jordan Poyer on the team. Like there were some real leaders on that team.
Poyer was a huge leader.
Yeah, Poyer, Wheaton, Seomalu, the older brother,
Andrew.
And then again, he was named a captain again going into the 2013 season, the year after he kind of got benched. I just think he has a way.
That was before he even got named the starter, and everyone's like, "Well, they're not going to bench a captain."
Yeah, and I just think he has a way of getting his teammates to believe in him, much the way Brady does. Brady's a guy who he takes less money. He does everything the right way. He prepares and everything. I think that has an effect on people, and yeah, that's it. I just think, and Brady, like really, it all comes down to is he gonna get a shot? It didn't look like Tom Brady was ever gonna get a shot. It took Drew Bledsoe nearly dying on the field for him to get in the game. And even when he was in the game, he didn't just come in and just like wasn't a great quarterback. He managed the game. He played the game well. He made the necessary players when like they went in the Super Bowl and he led that game-winning drive. A lot of them were just like dump off passes, just things you can only do when you study the game and prepare. And all it does is take a shot. So that's my pitch. And I think the Rams are a good team. I think they're a quarterback away, maybe a couple wide receivers away, but they got a great running game,
good defense,
great defensive line. So yeah, I
wouldn't say great defense. I'd say great defensive line, like you said, but I wouldn't say I'm still not sold on their corner and safety play. I think obviously you and I can have a whole other podcast on NFL football.
Yeah,
but And one thing I forgot to ask, are we going to get Pac-12 fantasy football going again this year, Brian?
Oh, of course.
Good. After hearing what you've had to say, is that the end of your argument? Or is it still going? I've started to get myself a kind of good opinion now on what I'm going to respond to.
Okay. Yep. I think that I'll put an end on that.
Oh, you'll put a pin in it?
I'll let it go. I could go on for even longer.
B+.
Yeah.
Similar, but I think we're looking at a very small sample size for Sean Mannion.
Of course. I mean, this is definitely...
But a B+ in the fact that I see you did a lot of research and a lot of good stuff. And of course, being a Beaver fan growing up, and I'm sure you and I would love nothing more than that, to see that. But the Rams are going to... Goff is their golden boy.
Yeah. Well, it was the same with Drew Bledsoe. He was the golden boy.
But Drew Bledsoe had been there for a while yet. It wasn't like they just drafted Drew.
They invested it was a 10-year, because Drew was still pretty young.
He's like 25 maybe?
He might have been a little bit older than that.
26?
He might have... Yeah, so he was still young, but they $100 million, like he was the richest... That was the richest contract in NFL history at the time.
Yep. So... I like it. I think it's a good pick, and I think we'll.
And obviously you can't just be like, oh, he's definitely the next greatest quarterback of all time.
Yep.
But there are enough parallels that
there are.
I think they're both like kind of wired the same way in all these different ways. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm pulling for him. I hope he has a long, successful NFL career.
All right.
So yeah. Man, what are we at? We've talked for about an hour now.
That's a solid podcast.
Solid podcast. Not bad for our first go around. We'll probably do a couple more of these. Maybe later on this week we'll dive a little bit more into.
Oh yeah,
we won't talk as much about Sean Mannion and Tom Brady.
No, but you and I, I'm sure, will have a lot to talk about from Oregon State football the next 2 days and get after it.
Yeah, once you kind of get around and start seeing things.
I need to start seeing football. I'm excited.
Yeah,
so.
we'll do some season breakdowns. We'll do some positional breakdowns. We'll have a lot of different things going on.
Thanks for having me on, Brian, as always.
Yeah,
in the Brian and Brenden Talking Oregon State Football podcast.
Yeah, the Brian and Brenden. So, yeah, this is the first episode of the Brian and Brenden talking about Oregon State football podcast.
We're workshopping the name.
Yeah, we're workshopping the name. It's growing on me, though. I like it. I like the long, kind of annoying, obnoxiously long title. So, thanks, everyone, for listening. We'll be back again later this week. So, stay tuned for that.